I'm Donna Brown from Troy University Career Services, and our guest today is Attorney Aaron Gartlan. Aaron practices injury law and plans to give us some tips and steps on how to plan for a career as an attorney. Aaron, let you take it from here.
Okay. So again, I'm happy to be here with you all today. I appreciate the great work that you all are doing in career services, and also I want to just congratulate all the students and participants that are here for taking the time to be with us today and invest in yourself. And I would, Donna, I was thinking that as an introduction, because I think it would really encapsulate who we are and what we do day in and day out at Gartlan Injury Law, and really set up the presentation. If we could go ahead and play the short video.
Okay.
Growing up in a mobile home park around good, solid, hard-working family people really made an impression on me early in life. And I know it's truly shaped who I am as a man and as a lawyer. I saw firsthand how hard they would work to provide for their families. When someone is injured and they're unable to do that, they're at their weakest point and they need help. And for me, I know that's what I'm meant to do.
I was at home and one of my twin brothers called and said that he had heard Andrew had an accident. He was in his bucket truck trying to fix something. The bucket truck was just going up, and he never saw. He did hit the roof, and no one could get up there to help him. He was passed away. Aaron had questions, and because he didn't turn around and not ask questions, he was able to find out that someone did make a mistake. I feel very comfortable in having them handle this for us. I don't think there could have been a better choice.
Care about our clients and the people we represent, the families we represent. We truly want to do everything to help provide for them in their time of need.
My brother was welding, and a large door fell on him. I didn't just lose my brother, I lost my best friend. Aaron showed compassion. We worked closely together, almost like it became family. You need somebody that really, really cares. You know, if every time it arises and you need somebody to protect your loved one or you really better make sure you get the best you can get.
A great case helps a family pick up the pieces after an accident or an injury, providing compensation. But the best cases actually touch, transform, and change lives and policies, expose unnecessary risk and danger, and those that would place a greater value on profits and productivity at the expense of safety and human life. It means everything to us to be a part of those positive, life-altering experiences and cases successfully navigating injury through the legal process.
So again, I appreciate everybody being here today. I always enjoy the opportunity to meet with and talk to students. As a Troy University graduate, it's especially meaningful for me to be able to connect with Troy University students. And just in getting started, I'd like to give you a little more background about me and basically, who we are and what we do day in and day out. And so in doing that, Troy University has played a big part in that. So pretty much, I can say definitively, I've probably, especially if you're considering a career in law or you're planning on going to law school, I've been where you are. And the, I appreciate you all indulging and kind of going through the video with me and allowing me to share that with you all. I've had people say, wow, Aaron, that really makes you look great. And I don't know, I guess that's the production people, and that was probably the intent. But I can assure you the real heroes in that are those families. So to get there, to get to where you saw, some of those results, and you hear me talking about profits and productivity, another way to, at the expense of safety and human life. Another way to put it is profits over people. And one of the reasons I enjoy talking to people in the community about who we are and what we do day in and day out, because there's so much in our profession, if you want to call it, quote unquote, our profession is a lot of speed and greed. Show me the money. We're going to put the jackhammer on you. We're going to, whatever. You've seen the commercials. I've heard all the jokes, and but that is so often not reality. And we see these commercials out in our community, like most of you are probably too young to remember the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes, where I think it was Ed McMahon, the co-host of the Tonight Show, would show up with balloons and confetti and the whole crew bringing a check in. And I can assure you, so many of these commercials and programs that you see where, I got $950,000 or whatever it is, $1 million. If you read the fine print, the person that actually got the money is confined to a wheelchair the rest of their life. Okay. Or they got a call to come into work and didn't make it. So they didn't make it home because someone didn't follow. And what we hear so much is operator error. And in reality, in most cases, safety starts at the top, and the value of people over profits starts at the top. And our ability to hold companies and industries accountable to follow the rules and the standards and the regulations, it's our ability to hold them accountable in the court system. I mean, it has been throughout the history of our country. We see day in and day out, the politicians aren't going to take care of us, okay? And then not going to get into, this is not a political platform, but the reality, they have constituents and agendas, and so our ability to hold industries accountable is so often through the court system. So that's another reason I enjoy being able to get out in the community and talk to people, show that video, and to again show the reality. Not a little soundbite for a commercial for the speed and greed, show me the money. What really happens and what these cases are really about. So for me, if I'm talking about Gartlan injury law and I'm giving you all an introduction to who we are and what we do, I've got to go back a little bit, if you'll indulge me, maybe 5 minutes to do that. And to my dad, my father was born and raised in Galax, Virginia, which is a community that people, guys, when they graduated high school, would either join the military or go to work at the furniture factory. My dad did both. After his time in the Navy, he moved over to the Delville, Midland City, Newton, Dothan area, and went to work at a brick plant, worked at a cardboard box factory. And I can remember back at the mobile home park, Town and Country Estates, that's shown we were actually there, which is ironically across the street from the Troy Dothan campus, where I've been fortunate to be on the adjunct faculty teaching there since 2006. So, I literally grew up, right across the street from Troy, the Dothan campus. And so that's just another layer of, again, just kind of how meaningful it is to be able to share this with you all. So I distinctly remember as a kid, I wasn't even in elementary school, listening to my mom and dad in a discussion about one of my father's co-workers having his part of his hand, his fingers chopped off at the box factory, and my dad taking his shirt off, offering care, getting the fingers up, getting into. So at a very young age, I had this impression that, hey, work could be dangerous. Then I had an experience right there at Town and Country Estates where I was running, and again, this is even prior to first grade, I was running with a glass juice bottle, and on our front, we at the time lived in it's probably about a 14 by 70 mobile home, and there was a electrical box outside, and it had frayed, looking back, I remember it had frayed wires, and I was running with a apple juice bottle, glass bottle, probably a 12, 16 ounce container of juice, glass, tripped on one of the cords, fell onto the little concrete pad in front of the mobile home, and I would have lost the use of my hand if my mother wouldn't have been able to get me to the hospital and a surgeon be there available right then to reach. And it didn't connect with me at the time, but looking back, I wonder, I know the electrical setup there was not the standard, was not the code. Okay. And I can't help but think in my mind, looking back now, because doing the kind of work that we do, okay, that was good enough for the mobile home park. See, so again, these are things that happen at a young age. Taking it, and I'm sharing these experiences with you because I've found in my career now, those experiences are far more relevant to what I do day in and day out than any, maybe I could say any but so much of the academic experience that I had in the classroom, those experiences are as relevant, if not more relevant, to what we do day in and day out than any of the coursework. So around that same time period, my father would go over to a service station that's no longer in existence, but it's still, you can still see the remnants of where it once was on 231, again adjacent to the Dothan campus, and on the same side as the mobile home park. There used to be a full service gas station, and my dad would go in and the attendant would come out, wash the windshield, check all the fluids, and pump your fuel. Well, he had a hook, and not a high-tech what we see today with the prosthetics. Technology has really leveled the playing field in so many areas, but it was a metal hook, and he would use that in the work that he did day in and day out. And so I knew that, I'm probably first grade at that time. I knew that he probably lost part of his arm working. And I could just tell by looking at him, this was a man that had probably done difficult, hard work all his life, and somewhere along the way lost part of his arm, and now he's left with a hook. Well, being kids, my friends and I, when we would I can remember going over there with my dad, and he, we didn't want to get out. We didn't want to look at him. It was not something that we were used to seeing. Maybe we'd seen it on TV or a movie or whatever, but I don't want to say that we were scared of him, but just kids being kids. And, again, I'll never forget, my dad would not let us treat him any different. And he made us get out and talk to him. And so that's another thing that made an impression on me. And again, I think back to this day, how difficult the hard work this guy must have done. And then to still be so diligent to get up and continue on every day after losing part of his arm. I mean, he would have probably qualified for, potentially some type of disability or whatever. And again, I don't know the circumstances, but again, it's just another one of those things that made an impression on me. And then moving forward into what we do now, getting closer in time after graduating high school, I got a call that my dad had suffered a heart attack, and what had happened, he started, at that point in time, he worked at Breathing Care Associates in Dothan, delivering and setting up oxygen and giving breathing treatments. And so he started, feeling bad during his work shift. And, just my dad being my dad, he never really went to the doctor. Finished out his shift, there were people dependent on him, and then just got to the point that at some point in the night was rushed to the hospital. And by that point, all the damage had been done. And so I saw firsthand and felt it, what a man that had worked essentially from the time he's like 12 or 13 years old, he's doing some type of work. And at the time I took it for granted, but worked so hard to do the best he could for us. And then just like that, he was not able to work. And at that point in time, I'm selfishly thinking, what does this mean for me? You know, I'm trying to get into to college, and you know, looking at going to Troy University, and again, I'm not proud to say that, but it was just the reality at the time. You know, hopefully I've matured some since then, but again, I saw, you know, what it did to him, and then just a guy that had worked to provide for his family. Looking back, he never, you know, never really got the credit for doing that. And for it just to end like that. So I saw the financial impact along with the health and the mental impact. So when I got the call from Sharon, see, we, you know, I understand what a family goes through, and the toll and the guilt. So John Randall Crawford is working as a welder, had worked a shift, again, working to provide for his family, gets a call in the night that there's an opportunity for some overtime. He's tired. He's worked all day. He's got to make a drive to get out there. It's the middle of the night, but it's an emergency. We can't stop production. You know, we've got to get this equipment repaired, and we got to do maintenance on the equipment, and we can't shut the line down to do it. So, you know, we're willing to pay you more if you'll come in the middle of the night and get this done for us. So he goes, gets to the plant. They show him the machine that they need him to go down into. It's a you know, piece of machinery that he climbs into, and at this particular plant, there's a control room that operates about 200 pieces of dangerous machinery that's all to some extent interconnected. And it looks like, again, you know, somewhat similar or just an industrial version of like the Starship. Again, you're probably too young for this one too, but the Starship Enterprise, you know, there's just it controls the plant. And he goes down into the machine. There's some guys up in the control room talking. They need to hear the they feel like they need to hear you know, listen to their conversations and whatever. So one of the guys decides to turn off a piece of machinery that's adjacent to the machine that John Randall's down in doing the repair work. And when the machine adjacent to that is powered down and turned off, it releases pneumatic energy into this gate, crushing John. And he doesn't make it home to his family. Not only does he not make it home to his family, but to add insult to injury, you know, when I got the call that had taken place, they had told him that it was operator error. We're so sorry. He just didn't follow directions, and it's his fault. So, and we'll pay for the funeral. Have a good day. And I've learned it's so easy to blame the weak. It's so easy to blame the dead. And there's wonderful, wonderful companies out there that keep us going and keep us safe. But so often when it's, you know, when they're not held accountable, the profits and the productivity are going to trump safety and human life. And that's exactly what happened here. And I told the family, do not believe this. These things aren't supposed to happen, okay? The industry standard is for about a 23. We hired an investigator, an engineer, went in, did our investigation, and the industry standard is like a 23-step process to power this machine down, with the last step being the person that's going to go in and do the work, and a trained safety manager or foreperson is to go up. And the last step is to test, just to make sure there's, and after this death, a $500 guard as an extra precaution. In other words, if all else fails, even if it's not powered down, this $500 guard that the industry standard calls for, this company's own safety rules and regulations, and it's probably just one of those things where you realize, okay, this is one of the reasons that one of those experiences where you realize, hey, this is one of the reasons that I was put here. No one else, I would never say that I'm the best, but I can tell you I have the opportunity to work with the best, and just one of those experiences where you realize, okay, this is what I was meant to do. This is why, one of the reasons I was put here. When I had the safety director of this company under oath during our lawsuit, again, they didn't want to take any responsibility until we sued them, had to prove what they did. They didn't just start sending money over to us, and bring out the balloons and the flowers and let's have a party. No, they blamed him. So when we got in and figured out what the facts were, it was really a great experience, as great as it can be, to have their safety director under oath and to go through with her the fact that he was not an employee of that company. He had only the second time that he had ever been contracted to go out there and do work for them. He had never worked on that machine. He had never been trained on that machine. And so I was able to ask her under oath, you all blame him. Please tell me what he did wrong. And when you're done telling me what he did wrong, I want you to explain how he should have done it. Now, let's let the record reflect. You're silent. You're silent. So you can't tell me what he did wrong, and you can't, as the safety director responsible for training and overseeing the training and the operation here, you can't tell me how the machine should have been, but I can tell you. And I'm going to go, and you're going to sit here, you all are going to sit here and listen to me go through step by step how it's supposed to be done. And I want you to tell me. You're silent again. So here we are with this 200 pieces of dangerous machinery. They have no written lockout tagout process. They have no standards for ensuring the safe. But let me tell you what they could explain to you. They could explain how much a shift, an 8-hour shift a day, a week, a month, a quarter, a year, an hour of production. They had all those numbers, but they did not have written lockout. And furthermore, and I'm reading from their own safety manual, and their safety director, I might as well have been speaking a foreign language to her. She had no idea. So the next thing, and this is nothing, I felt as bad as my heart, because this was a small community, the biggest employer in the community. And I could see in their face the workers there that we were deposing, they were concerned about their job because this is the biggest employer in their community. So they were in a compromised position. Guys, the leadership starts at the top. And so this lady was not given the tools. It was nothing against her directly, but she was just not given the tools and the resources because the company valued their production over safety. And again, another gratifying component would be, just the thought, you've got all your production numbers down. And I got to think, if that were your money down in that machine, if that was $1 million or $2 million or even $100,000 or $10,000, you would have protected that money. You would have watched over it. You would have had somebody guarding it. You would have locked it up. It would have been in a fireproof, full, insured, whatever. But then this man goes down doing, and so another problem there was their own rules and regulations, along with the industry standard, calls for a schematic and training around survey. In other words, there's 200 pieces of dangerous equipment that are connected together. And if I shut the energy off to one, what does it do to the other? Now that's way beyond me. That's what the engineers but again, she had no idea that, even though she's the safety director responsible to know all that and train it, she had no idea that if you turn off one machine, that it's going to have an impact on the others. So there were just so that's really the heart of what we do, holding companies accountable. And there's so many other stories like that. And I'll just briefly, because a commitment that I made to the family, that part of this is his legacy. So I told them every opportunity that I have to talk about John Randall, that I would do it. Same thing with Red, going up day in and day out, leaving before daylight, leaving when it's dark, working all day, getting home when it's dark, in and out of that. And just a quick, on that, there were some safety features in that bucket truck that were overridden. So when there was a problem, they were doing work, the bucket was supposed to be coming down, but for whatever reason it went up, and the assistant ran into the van to control it from the van, which is the industry standard, and it had been altered, and that's just not acceptable. So there was like a 3 to 4 step process to, instead of being able, one of the purposes of that override is if something goes wrong, the assistant can run in and take control of it. Well, when he did that, the control didn't work because there was like a 3 or 4 step process that had been installed in there, and it just, so again, once again, profits and productivity being heralded up. And so I share all that with you to, again, connect with you around who I am and what I do day in and day out. And the fact that I did have the idea early on, as far back as middle school, that I wanted to be a lawyer. And honestly, at that point in time, it just kind of started out as wanting to do better for myself, be able to buy a car, get a date, that, just kind of those. But then over time, and again, hopefully maturing, kind of connecting back with those life experiences and the people that I grew up with, and then just thinking back about, so for me, and that's what I wanted to share with you all. If you're thinking about a career in law, or any career for that matter, I think it's important for us to have a plan. And this is another thing where Troy University is so special to me. I had a, again, I didn't grow up kind of and I'm, not today, that silk stalking country club lawyer. And there's not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not me. That's not my experience. So it started for me as the idea, hey, I'm interested in law. I want to better myself. So I think that's the first step. And then once you take that next step, the opportunities, you start taking action, and the opportunities are going to follow. So that got me to the point of joining the National Guard, getting into college. And I had a professor at Troy. I would sit in the back of the class, and oftentimes I would be the last one to get there and the first one to leave. But I did show up I was diligent to show up to class. And he stopped me after class one day and said, "Look, Aaron, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Dr. Bay, I'm here. I'm in your class. This is one of the required classes." Yeah, but what are you doing? And he said some things that he probably would not be able to get away with today, but it was what I needed to hear. He basically said, "What's wrong with you? What are you doing? You're sitting in the back of the class. You're not paying attention. You're not putting out any effort. Why are you here? Why bother? You don't have to be here." And so I told him I wanted to go to law school. He said, "Well, do not come back to class. You're not welcome back to class until you tell me, what your next step is." So that really, and so from that point forward, and so I went back and we sat down and had a talk. I said, "Well, I've got to finish up my bachelor's degree, get my grade point average up." And he said, "Yeah, from this point forward, anything less than an A for you is unacceptable. And you can do that. All you have to do is just study, do what we ask you to do, and you're going to show up, put out the effort." And then I started explaining to him, taking the LSAT and applying to law school. So I had a plan. And then from that point forward, the opportunities just started. And I went, graduated from Troy. And while I was there, I took all of the law classes. I was a social science major. And again, it's one of those things I'm not proud of this, but I chose that because that was the major with the least math and science. At that point, there was not really a pre-law option. So I did the social science and then just took all of the law and public speaking courses that were offered: constitutional law, criminal law, business law. And there may have been a few other law-related classes that all were, and then the public speaking type. So I would recommend a pre-law major, because the thing, if you're interested in, because it's just one of those things. And for me, it was all about going to college to basically be able to get accepted into law school, so I could take the bar exam. And really a big part of law school was just getting us prepared for the bar exam. Now, if you want to be a tax lawyer, of course, business, accounting, if you already know that you're wanting to get into that specialty, but I think you also want to look at a pre-law track so you can take advantage, because again, you're not going to be a tax lawyer and if you don't get through law school and then the bar exam. So Dr. Bay really helped me get a plan together. And then once I got out and started practicing, for me, it was about, again, reaching back to those life experiences, the people around me that I saw that worked so hard. And then if I wasn't there, and again, not that I'm, would never proclaim to be the best, but I know when we're at our best, we're often connecting with people that otherwise would not even think about contacting a lawyer, because they've been told it's operator error, it's his fault. And they're not generally people that wake up and think about contacting an attorney. So for me, that's become a big part of what we do, is to get the word out, so to speak, and to let people know that those kind of things just don't happen. I mean, I've seen cases where guys are just permanently injured because there's a kill switch on a machine that's 60 feet away from where they're working and not arm's reach, and a $20 kill switch, or an industrial dryer and a $50 guard that would keep the industrial dryer door from collapsing. You know, something as simple as a $5 blind spot mirror at a loading dock, and it's not there, and someone gets hit, and it's just so when you hear about these things in the community, again, the insurance and big industry's done a great job of feeding everybody that it's all frivolous lawsuits and it's people not doing whatever. But the so often the safety starts at the top, and it's because they're not following their own safety rules and regulations that are designed to protect. And all that for me stemmed from those life experiences with my dad and the people in the community, and to have a family sit down in our conference room here and say, Aaron, you know, Andrew always said if something happened, I need to call you. And now we're here. And again, another one of those experiences where you say, okay, well now, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that's an overview, and so again, you know, develop a plan, look around at your life experiences, and don't discount those experiences that you're having, you know. And I didn't do it at the time. I mean, so often I'm just going through feeling like I'm trying to survive and kind of get to the next day or the next meeting or the next test or class. But then after reflection, I realized, okay, well, that was as instrumental to getting me here as the law classes were. And so again, just to reiterate, you know, just get a plan and take action, again, because once you take that first step, you're going to see opportunities start opening up. And find mentors, find people that are where you are, and talk to them. And this is really important. This is probably one of the most important things that I'm going to say to you, because I see it so often from clients. You know, I'll have clients, and you know, we love our clients. I'm not saying this to disparage them, but this is one of the reasons that they need us, because they'll call. And even though we've cautioned them not to be out talking to people, they've talked to 10 people or they've talked to 100 people. And it's just one of those things you'll learn in life. Yes, have mentors, find mentors. They can help guide you and get you to work. But you need to make sure you're getting the advice from the right person, because so often people are out talking to people that have no experience, or they're not where they want to be or doing what they want to do. So they're going to discourage. And so often our friends and family, even though they love us, oftentimes they just don't have it in them to offer the encouragement. So again, make sure you're kind of getting advice and mentorship from people that are going to encourage you and pull you up and really give you guidance. So, you know, I hope this is helpful. And there's always a need. You know, we're probably at an all-time high in America as far as the number of attorneys. my recommendation for you would be to find a niche, to get into something that that you're interested in, but also look at your life experiences when you're trying to figure that out, and the opportunities that are around you. And I'm glad to answer, as long as we can, to answer any questions or any comments or feedback. And I put my email, I hope it went through, but I put my email address in the chat. So if there's something we don't address, you all feel free to stay in touch, and you can contact me directly. And again, I appreciate you all being here, and I just want to encourage all of you to keep, investing and just, continue on. And that, I guess that kind of brings me to a final thing. Is so often I see people and colleagues that, they feel like that degree program is the last class. And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm daily adapt. I mean, this is an example. We've got to adapt. We've got to continue to learn. I read books, listen to podcasts, there's a lawyer that I work with that's been practicing for 45 years. And when I'm around him, I'm talking. I'm quiet as much as possible, and I just listen to him, and listen to podcasts, listen to books, be and continue to adapt and learn. So, and again, I hope this is, helpful. It looks like we've got a question from Marley. For building your resume and experience prior to applying to law schools, or tips for applying in general, experience prior to applying to law schools.
You want us to read it, Aaron? It might help you. I know you're trying to.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for students who have obtained an MPA, so public administration, master's in public administration, and are now interested in working with health policy? And you know what? Actually, I skipped Marilee's, but so let's take this one and I'll go back to that one. I'm sorry. So Ashley's asking if you have advice for students who have a master's in public administration and are interested in working with health policy. She's trying to decide if law school would be the right way to go.
Okay. It's a master's in public administration.
Right. She's interested in policy and health.
Yeah. Honestly, and the question was from what's her name again?
Ashley.
Okay. Yes. Ashley, that's a great question. One thing that I would always, just across the board, law school is a 3-year program. It's an expensive program. It's intensity, and it's one of those things. And I love education. I wouldn't, I pretty much owe, in so many ways, so much to education. But one of the problems with law school, we take things that could relatively be simple and make it really complicated. So it's just a huge commitment. And I would just drill down, what is it that you're actually interested in? In other words, would you be interested in working in medical facilities to kind of help execute the policies and to help maybe shape and mold? Or are you interested in it from the legal perspective? And in other words, being a lawyer and working in a legal department for hospital administrations or politics, so I think I would just really recommend you look at the various, I think it's a great idea to continue on with your higher education, but are there other degrees that would be more applicable to what you're interested in? For example, your first year of law school is just your basic law-related classes that have been taught for probably more than 100 years, and the test and the coursework, in other words, torts, criminal procedure, criminal law, constitutional law, business law, tax, wills and trusts and estates. There's like a basic curriculum that's tested on the bar exam, and so which has really nothing to do but to be a hospital administration or policy attorney. You know, you have to have all that. So is there some other degree program, graduate or postgraduate, that would align more closely? I certainly would not discourage you from going to law school. I definitely think it would be helpful, but I would really take some time now and just drill down, you know, what do you want to do with the next 3 years of your life and the investment, and look at the curriculum. I mean, start looking around at the law schools and the curriculum, so you'll see the coursework, and again, make that decision. Are you wanting to practice law? And if the answer is yes, or work in kind of a legal lawyer capacity, then that's the only way to get there. But if there's a more administrative, in other words, in a hospital setting or so I know I'm, going in circles with it, but I just think you need to do some research and make make a decision, and and I'm confident that you'll get there.
Great response, Aaron. I think we get those kind of questions in the Career Center a lot, and you don't always know exactly what you want to do, but you want to get the best fit for the degree. So you don't want to go to law school just to get a terminal degree if you want to really be in management. But if you want to work with law or legal procedures and you need a law degree, then that's a great option too. So Marilee asked, what advice do you have for building your resume and experience prior to applying to law schools? And so she's planning to apply in the fall. So she just wants your advice on experience, building her resume, just best practices for applying to law school.
Okay. Well, yeah. So Marilee, that's another great question. And what I would recommend is kind of getting doing the best you can to get a plan around where you want to go to law school, what is important to you, and I'm sure you went about that process when you applied to Troy. I'm sure you probably considered some other colleges, and then ultimately. So I would start looking at and doing some research around the law school, and then figure out what their criteria, some just like college, some law schools lean real heavy on your LSAT, your LSAT score. Others are going to look more at your grade point average and your life experience. And so I think that's one thing that could factor in and find out what they're interested in. And one of the things that I would, as far as building a resume, I think in today's world, it's so important to communication skills, leadership skills. We're the business world is and that really encompasses everything, is really growing and expanding, and technology is doing such a great job to level the playing field in so many cases. So as far as things to build a resume, work experience, just working with the public, if it's somehow law related, that's great. But we're finding more and more across the board, there are so many businesses and companies large and small, that would so often prefer that you don't have experience, but you have a skill set. You get along with people. You have empathy for people. You show up on time. You do what you say you're going to do. You're respectful. You know, and so anything that can kind of put you in a position to demonstrate that, whether it's working at McDonald's to working in a law firm, working at the university, anything in between, and if there's just opportunities to just get involved. It's so important. Relationships, you know, just get involved with, and it's balance. And I think it's important. And these are things that I read, you know, and that's something else. I don't want anything that I say to think that, to sound like I feel like I've got all the answers, but these are conversations that I'm having with myself because it's important for me to stay involved and get out in the community. But then there's, so we're all kind of balancing. So, you know, I think oftentimes volunteer work, and that's one of the areas that I started working in a law firm in 1997. And what I did, I went to the office and went into the lobby and spoke with a legal assistant, handed her a packet and said, look, I would like to speak with Blake or Thomas. If they're here, those were two of the attorneys. We went to the same law school, and I knew when they hear, and that's so often what you'll find if you'll just start taking action. When people find out that you're interested in something that they enjoy and they like, I mean, look, my family's heard all these stories thousands of times. They don't, you know, they're tired of hearing it. But if I have somebody in the community, I enjoy talking about it. So I think that's something else. Get out, join Rotaract, or, you know, and just find out what's going on. And again, going back and looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, you can't start networking too early, for sure. Just building relationships. And we're happy to review your resumes, any of that, your application materials and career services. If you ever want to just jump on our website and email it to us. And once we're back on campus or wherever your location is, we can talk too. We got a few more questions. Catherine, she's just saying she's a little worried about law school because she doesn't know how difficult. She doesn't really know how difficult it'll be. Doesn't really know much about law school's curriculum or the bar exam. So what's your take on that?
Well, you know, one, and what was it, Lauren, who asked the question again? Catherine. Okay. Yes. That's another great question. Well, you know, it's like so many other things in life, the difficulty level, and there's really no right or wrong answer here, but it's like anything that we do, you've got to make a decision. Is the reason that you want to do it or the why? Does that outweigh, you know, is your reason for doing it? Because it is difficult. It's an investment. It's a commitment, but go, you know, just look around in the community. You can do it. I mean, I have no doubt if it's ultimately, if you make the decision that it's important for you. So that's one thing that I would want you to take away from this, is that there's no doubt in my mind that you can do it if you decide to do it. The curriculum is, for me, and again, this just shows you how focused in, when Dr. Bay told me to come up with and be able to report back to him, it's for me, and this is pretty much across the board, it's a 3-year program. Now, just like Troy University has gone back and forth with terms and quarters and semesters and and all these, but at the time that I went, that 3-year program equated to 30 classes. And those were, you know, criminal law, criminal procedure, contracts, tax, wills and trusts, bankruptcy. And the bar exam was a 3-day 3-day test. One day was 6 hours of multiple choice question. And then the second and third day were 6 hours of essay, writing questions. Now, but I took the bar exam in 1999, so I'm sure it's some variation of that. But again, if you spend and this is what I did to prepare. Going back to mentors, I found a student that was doing well in the program, okay? Not one that was just on thin ice or on some kind of probation. I found one that was excelling in the program, and that was from my, and I knew her, and I told her that I would buy her notes, her books, and, for every class. And so, because she was 1 year ahead of me, and then I asked her to mentor me and tell me when I have a choice of professors, just tell me what kind of tell me, when it comes time to register, just give me some guidance, give me your notes, let me buy your book from you, give me some guidance. Then, so I did that. The next piece of advice she gave me was go ahead and sign up for a bar review course and utilize that to help you go ahead and start studying for the bar. But you're going to use it to also study, but don't study ahead. Utilize the portion. In other words, when I was taking criminal procedure, when I was taking civil procedure, I utilized the civil procedure portion of that bar review course to study for the civil procedure class. And so I was constantly listening to lectures on the subject, through this bar review course. So essentially, I had 3 years of law school, and at the same time, 3 years of, and I don't mean this because it's nothing more than the fact that I'd spent 3 years not only in study for the law school class, but take in a bar review course. So if I couldn't pass after doing that, so my point is, the bar exam, it's not something I'd want to do again, but it was easy for me because I'd spent 3 years getting, studying for it. Now the students that didn't do that barely showed up to class, that didn't do that wasn't listening to the lectures, that didn't do the bar, when I sat for the bar exam, and I don't know what the numbers are, but you can find all this. You can get online and look at the coursework. You can look at the curriculum and the bar exam requirements. But when I sat for the bar exam, only 35% of the students that sat for the bar exam with me in Alabama passed. So that meant 65% didn't pass. But I can tell you, the people that took the approach that I took, which was go ahead and start preparing, because I couldn't afford from a time or a financial investment to go through that 3 years and not pass the bar exam. But I have no doubt that you can do it. You just have to be committed to it. And with the technology, I was listening to tapes and I think we started getting some DVDs, maybe, but I know there were CDs and tapes. But with the technology now, all that information is a lot easier to access.
That is a great tip. That's a huge takeaway for our students, I think. So thank you.
And look, I still do that. I still do that now. I've had law, and it's really had some of the best breakthroughs in our cases. I've had so many attorneys that are not willing to be humble. They think they know everything, and they think they're the best at everything. And really some of our best work is reaching out to other experts in the field and talking with them about what we're, and not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's and Lauren, you just touched on it. If you're concerned about your resume, there's resources out there. I mean, there's just an abundance of resources and people, so for me, that's really made a huge difference.
We've got two questions that I think we can combine. So Dorian is asking, what about having a high GPA but a low test score? So if they haven't done as well on the LSAT, and as a follow-up, Joshua is saying, do you have any recommendations for LSAT prep course material?
Okay, yes. Now, I would not let the low LSAT score discourage you, because number one, I can relate to that. I was, graduating high school. I didn't, we were, it wasn't really just drilled and ingrained that the ACT really started kind of being drilled into everybody. But, I didn't even take the ACT. Knowing what I know now, I would have made straight A's through high school, taken the ACT and gotten a scholarship. I didn't really put a lot of thought into the LSAT because I pretty well knew where I was going to go to law school, which is, I believe it's now Faulkner Law, but at the time, it was Jones School of Law in Montgomery. So I knew that, I knew that was the law school that I was going to attend. And at the time, I'm not sure what it is now, but at the time they didn't have a stringent. My grade point average was more than enough to make up. So, it's Isaiah, or was it Joshua?
Mm-hmm.
or Joshua?
And Dorian.
Yeah, I don't know why okay. So yeah, Dorian, I would not let the low and I don't know what you've got. You probably haven't even taken it, but whether you have or haven't, or if you're not happy with the score, don't let that discourage you, because the ACT could be helpful for college, but it's certainly not an indicator. The indicator, how many people have we heard about with scores off the chart, but they may or may not show up or don't do it? So my advice to you would be, don't let that discourage you. If you show up, do the assignments, read, study, kind of take the approach that I've, find some mentors in the program. And there's so many law schools across the country. And just in the state of Alabama, you have Jones Law School, Cumberland in Birmingham, the University of Alabama, Florida State has a law school, over in Georgia. There's just, and if you expand it out across the country, so there's law schools that have different criteria that are looking at life experience, grade point average, that have programs where they bring you in over the summer. In other words, even if the grade point average and the LSAT score is not where you want it to be, they'll bring you in over the summer and kind of put you through. And that's another thing that in the condition that we're in now, with everything going on with the campuses, I don't know how this works, but when I attended law school, there was a trend where so many of the law schools had a summer introduction program. So they would kind of get you in and give you an introduction and just kind of get you ready. And I would take advantage of any of those resources. As far as the LSAT study, I would probably just try to do some research, maybe connect with other law students and find out what they did, because what I did, when I took the LSAT, it probably would have been 1995, and so, and I'm sure things have changed somewhat. I know Kaplan is, known for prep courses, so that may be an option. But I would try to reach out to some students that have just recently gotten admitted that did really well, and try to find out. And again, with social media and the networks that we now have, I would think you could find that out. But again, definitely, if it's something that you have in your heart to do, the curriculum, I do know this, even though the tests may have changed, the format or whatever, but the law curriculum, and I can say from experience, that LSAT, it's in my mind, it's another financial. There's people that are profiting off it because it has absolutely nothing to do. I mean, I can't say nothing to do, but there's no correlation. I probably had one of the lower scores going in, or an average or a lower LSAT. I didn't do a prep course. I really didn't put a lot into it, but I can say unequivocally, when I finished the program, because of the work that I did while I was in the program, I was in the top, 1% around in there as far as the grade point average, because I had perfect attendance, did all the work, did the review courses, and I was in. There was a pediatrician and a psychiatrist and some other, people that were in, looking to specialize in a, specific area of law. So, we really had a lot of competition in our class. But see, one of the things we organized, we had a lady that would record. No, it was a guy. He had a military background. He would record the lectures, and then there was a lady that, we would buy her lunch or whatever, and she would transcribe the notes. Now, this was on a tape recorder, and a lot of that's just, the technology, that's so much easier to do now. But my point behind all that is just don't let that, if you are in that situation, don't let it discourage you, because the LSAT score really has nothing to do with your ability to perform. Just like so many other things in life, showing up, doing what you say you're going to do, being respectful, being humble, and asking for help and guidance and so forth, that's going to get you a lot further than that high, that high score.
That's really encouraging. And Joseph actually commented that Khan Academy, KHAN, is free, and that's
good.
prep. So thanks for that, Joseph. You touched on this a little bit, but Yvonne asked about, you were saying some of the law schools will have a pre-summer type program, because she's saying if she's on a campus that doesn't really have a lot of law classes, what could she do to take some classes or get ready for law school?
Well, I think it starts with trying to get focused on what law school that you want to attend, and now is she actually in a law school program now, or about to start, or she's still in undergraduate? Is that
graduate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think the first step, and that's again another great question. The first step would be trying to get focused on the law school that you want to attend, finding out what the admission requirements are, what the curriculum is all about. Different law schools have different programs. For example, and this is just one example, but Mercer University, knowing what I know now, I look back at it and I think, I could have put a little more time into this, but Mercer is really known for, they have a trial, kind of a mock trial program. But the important thing is to get into a program, if it's something that you have in your heart to do, find a program that works for you and get in, because you could go through that wonderful trial program and say, hey, I want to be a trial lawyer, but you don't even, you don't get there without getting through the curriculum. Now, as far as if you're on a campus and in a degree program that doesn't offer a lot of law classes, I wouldn't let that discourage you. The law classes that I took at Troy University were helpful, but most of the students that were in the program, and you'll find in so many of your law programs across the country, so many of them haven't taken law classes. So they're going to start you in law school on day one with and give you the information and the resources, and if you'll put the time and effort into it, you can make it through the program even if you've had no introduction. So I don't know if that ship sailed, so to speak, as far as getting into law related college classes. I would probably just shift the focus on what are the admission requirements to the law schools that I'm interested. And then once you get there, then start looking around. Is there an introductory? Do they offer an introductory program that can kind of help give me a head start? Is there a student that I can reach out to that can recommend a study, kind of a study plan, and not really focus on not taking law classes, because that's not going to stop you either. Right. But again, there's so many podcasts and videos on YouTube, and there's just so many resources out there that if you were interested, you could pick a subject and do a search in YouTube and find lectures and outlines and so many. If that's just something, or podcasts, or if that's something in documentaries, and so if that's something you have an interest in, take some time and do that. But I wouldn't let it discourage me from getting into law school.
We've got 2 more questions. And I did want to mention, Aaron had said he put his email address. Do you mind if they shoot you a question if another one comes up after we end today?
Not at all.
All right, so we'll go through these last 2 questions in the chat box. Ashley asked, she said she's often heard that ranking is important when deciding on a law school and that it impacts your job possibilities. Is that accurate?
Well, it's again one of those things. It could be. I think it's like so much else in life. Some of the most successful lawyers around the country have graduated from law schools that really, I've had people talk with me about tiers. I guess from what I understand, there's first, second, third, whatever that is. And, I think it just depends on what you're wanting to do. Okay. For example, I think the studies show that your Ivy League graduates have been more likely to wind up on the U.S. Supreme Court or in a federal judge position. But on the other end of the spectrum, I can assure you the people that we've gotten our best results for, and the work that we do day in and day out, that doesn't matter. What they want to know, do you care about me, and can you help me? And generally, we're not even going to get to, can you help me, if they get a sense that we don't care. So, and just like I was touching on earlier, and this is a great, another, just you all are asking some really great questions, and I appreciate the engagement. But back to something I had mentioned before, more and more businesses and companies and industries are finding out that they're more interested in skill sets and characteristics. Can and again, it depends on what you want to do. Can you work well with others? Do you have empathy for people? Are you going to show up on time? Can you get things done? Can you be a team player? Can you be a leader? And so there's just so many factors across the board. And so the reality, if you have an opportunity to get into one of those upper tier, and that's the direction that you're interested, take it and run. But don't buy into, trust me when I tell you, don't buy into this business of, well, I can't get in here and this one has no ranking. So, because that's just, again, because I can tell you in my community, and this is a, close knit, there's lawyers out there running around with, their names and the Roman numerals on their buckles, and it was established 150 years ago, and they all went to the university, and that's wonderful. I'm not disparaging that at all, but I can tell you the people that come through our doors, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything to I'm not gonna say it doesn't mean anything to them, but they're not concerned about what my dad, my great granddad, my uncle, they want to know, what we can do to help them. And so often they just need number one, they need somebody to listen and care, and then, let them know what their options are. So, but I'm in a really unique situation, and you all have to understand, I've got a really, whatever I've said here, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing something. My hope is to encourage you to take action, whatever your decision is. But I'm in a very narrow, our law firm has always been in Dothan. And so I've got that, and primarily what we've done day in and day out are represent the injured, with a focus on people that are injured while working. So my view of the world and my experiences are narrow, but I knew that early on. I knew that I wasn't going to be applying for and getting in something for congressional hearings or political or any. So that really didn't. And I can say, in my mind, but this is just me, the best value in law school for a resident of Alabama is the University of Alabama. And I don't know where they rank, but if you look at the cost and the resources that are on that campus, the tremendous resources that are on that campus, and you compare their cost to the private, for my money in my world, I would encourage, that's what I would encourage. But see, that's with my very limited experience. There may be a student that wants to go. We had an intern years ago that I think was going to a graduate at New York, and then wound up and her goal is getting into the human rights. So she's was wanting to kind of get in international and kind of, she needed to kind of do some travel and maybe get out of the Southeast. So I think a lot of it, you just do some research, but again, don't let the fact that you're not going in, that, and maybe you would get into that top tier, but I think that's really so important in the long-standing firms that have been around. I think people used to refer to as the silk stalk and the blue blood, the white shoe, or getting on and those things may be important to you, getting on the bench as a federal judge, or so. But again, I would not let that stop me. And there's some other resources that have very different life experience and career experience. Dr. Ames, Skip Ames, that's a professor with the Sorrell College of Business, and his, it's so thick it's not even called a resume. I believe it's a CV. It reads like a book, and I think he would be a great resource as far as the tier, because I could be wrong about this, but I think he is a Harvard graduate. And then there's Buzzkirk, or Van Buzzkirk with the Sorrell. He among other things, but he spent part of his career as a kind of an entertainment intellectual property lawyer with the Disney Corporation. So he would have a much so, and these are guys that would welcome your questions, and send them an email, pick up the phone, give them a call, and they would have a different perspective on some of these specific questions that you have, because they've just had different life experiences from me.
That's really great insight. So our last question is from Nico, and he asks, for those that may want to practice law in multiple states at some point in the future, would the bar be a limiting factor, or is it a reasonable goal to practice law in multiple states?
No, it's definitely that was Nico.
Okay.
Yeah, Nico, that's another great question. That's definitely realistic. Most states, and again, see, I took the bar exam in 1999, and when we look at where we are now compared to then, things are becoming more and more. It truly is a global economy. So states have worked together. I know there's options for multi-state bar exam, and the admission to the bar in other states has opened up more. And so there are opportunities to take what's known as kind of a multi-state bar exam, and then so many other states will recognize your bar exam score. So you just have to submit an application, pay the fees, and the difficulty can be, and the medical doctors run into this, that if they're licensed in multiple states, just making sure you meet those requirements every year, and a lot of it centers around just paying the fees, and then making sure that any continuing education requirements that you have are met, and that they're communicated with. But again, with technology, it's a lot easier to do that. So that's definitely a possibility to do that.
I think that's it. Anybody else need to take yourself off mute and say anything or ask a question? Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. Thank you all.
Okay. I've got one question that they may be interested in. Private practice versus working in a law firm. Maybe the advantages or disadvantages, and maybe the investment in both. And then how many years experience would it take for you to become a private firm or to become a private firm?
Okay. Yeah, Donna, that's a great question. And I think a lot of it just depends on, again, just taking some time to really drill down what it is you want to do, and what kind of cases, what kind of people you want to work in, what kind of environment. And there's law firms across the country that are so much like companies that have personalities and kind of we hear that corporate culture, so the advantage, of course, in working in a firm, if they've got a really positive, a really encouraging, fun, whatever, if it fits your personality and you're going to be a fit there, then just the support, the support and the resources that can be offered. But then in contrast, if it's not a good culture, it may not be a good fit. And for us, and it's something that we're still working through, early on, we and the lawyers that I've worked with over the years to kind of get to where I am, I'd made a decision that at least initially, that being more of a what would be considered a boutique kind of quality over quantity, where we're not as much, we're not as and again, these are just processes that we're having to work through, but maybe not as focused on leads. And to remember that, because there are some firms that, even though they're dealing with these life changing experiences, it's leads. It's counting leads. If we spend X amount of dollars, they've got the formula calculated. If these are the ways we market, we're going to get 1,000 leads. If we get 1,000 leads, then we'll sign up 200 cases. If we get 200 cases, then it's leads, and it's a formula. So, and some people thrive in that environment. They love the data and they love all that, and so the advantage, again, is just the support and the resources if things are going good. But if you look at, for example, Apple and IBM, when they started into the personal computers, IBM was this big corporate giant, and still is wonderful, and delivered a wonderful product when they're dealing with corporations and big mainframe systems and government, but when it came to the consumer, they could not relate to this consumer. And we look at Apple as the giant now, but in the beginning, Apple was a small business. Started in a garage, and they could deliver better on the personal computer because they could relate to the consumer. And so for people that would kind of have that structure, kind of that, that work like that, maybe a smaller environment. Now, I had a friend ask me a while back, kind of back to experience and so forth. I had a friend tell me that her son wanted to be an agent, an entertainment agent, primarily a sports agent. And Aaron, what does it take to do that? I said, well, I'm sure there's probably some licensing requirements and so forth, but basically, just like in the situation that I'm in order to be an injury lawyer, and I don't mean this to be comical, but Aaron, what does it take to be an injury lawyer? Well, a client. I've got to meet the requirements to get that's really where it starts. So for me, getting enough experience and get and you know, to where you're comfortable. But again, there's the component of you know, where are your cases going to come from? Where are your clients? So it's, you know, it's just one of those things, Donna. It's difficult to really, or at least for me, to put a concise answer. I think these are just things where I would encourage people to take action and then just start working through those things. But it's a great question because it's something that you want to be mindful of. Do I want to work where I've got one thing that I'm going to be doing all day, and I'm part of a 1,000 member team? And those, and again, just like I give the example with IBM, wonderful, one of the most successful companies in the world, but they're like a big battleship, you know, and there's kind of I keep talking about IBM, but I see some of these big insurance firms that, oh, you know, they've got all the credentials and the criteria, but it's a lot like IBM. They've got that big battleship and they can't turn it. You know, it takes a long time to turn it because there's about 100 people that a decision has to go. And that would drive me nuts, you know, because so much of what we have to do, it can oftentimes take me a long time to make a decision, but it's oftentimes, you know, you've got 100 people, and so often in my observation, there's 100 people, but only 10 are being productive. And so the other 90 are a distraction. And but in other corporate cultures, you've got 1,000 people going in the same direction. And so again, I think it's just a matter of, you know, trying to decide, and also again, looking at the opportunities. For example, private practice or working with the government. Again, you know, the government so often is going to offer stability and benefits, and if any of the students have an interest in business, I would highly recommend reading The Entrepreneur Myth by Michael Gerber, because Donnie, you talk about the cost, and Gerber in that book, you know, he talks about the cost of doing business and running a business. And one of the things that he talks about is that businesses don't spend money, they consume money, because there's just, you know, so and so that's definitely, if somebody was going to go out and start their own firm, yet you definitely have to think about, well, you know, where are the cases and the clients going to come from, and how are we going to pay for it? You know, because it's expensive. But for college students, the good news is that you don't have to make these decisions right now. You know, you've got time to kind of work through it and do some internships, or get, you know, some jobs, or go do some volunteer work in different environments and figure out, you know, what is the best fit. And do you have more of an entrepreneurial draw where you're going to want to go start your own and modify the systems to work best for you? Or do you want to plug into a system and train and learn and move up in that corporate, and have more of that corporate, or, you know, whether it's a bigger organization or the government?
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Yes.
You've done a wonderful job driving home the fact that passion definitely drives you in your career. It makes you successful in your career. We talk to students about that every day. Find your passion, and that will make you successful. You've done a wonderful job of explaining that today.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it, and I'll and again, you know, feel free to circulate the email again, and I'm, always glad to, to connect with students. And if I can help you all, just, feel free to stay in touch.
Great.
Well, we appreciate your time. I know that's valuable. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And we definitely appreciate you spending time with our students and helping them understand and giving them a way to connect and to ask questions that they may have later down the road.
Well, good, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For attending, everybody.
Good.